Very good afternoon, everybody. Very good to be here and on a very interesting topic. It's an all ladies panel that we have here. Well, there's always a first, and I think it's a good thing because we have a good mix as well. We have two people or three people who are general counsels, and then we also have somebody from a law firm. So it's a good mix to have a look at this topic from both sides. The topic is also very interesting: designing the legal function of the future, hybrid teams, legal ops, and AI generated processes. Now, we have a shortage of time. We are all running behind. So, we will try to keep our discussion very crisp. I will try to allow my panelists to spend as much time as they would like on the questions that are really intriguing. So, what we've tried to do is we've tried to structure the discussion actually in a three-part model so that we are able to cover as much as we can. We'll start off with the foundational concepts of, how exactly do hybrid teams work? Do we really need hybrid teams? Why do we need hybrid teams? Questions like that. Go into, what are the practical implementations when we are talking about AI, legal ops, any kind of automation, etc. And then have a discussion on what the future outlook is going to be like. So without further ado, let's start with you, Roop, who is the farthest away from me. So Roop, why do we need a hybrid work model, and why is it that in modern legal teams we need to maintain collaboration despite working in a hybrid setup? What are your thoughts on this in terms of both the teams as well as the technology that is required for it?
Thank you, and very good evening to everyone. Well, I think the businesses have changed now in today's scenario. We have more hybrid form of businesses. So, looking at that scenario, I think hybrid teams, legal teams, is the way forward. And as far as hybrid business teams are concerned, legal teams are already very stretched, so they have to work close to 12 to 15 hours sometimes. So it will also give them greater flexibility. It also brings in better productivity when your work hours are so stretched and you have to deep dive into a document. I mean, I personally like to work from home when I have to deep dive in a document. So it gives that kind of flexibility. It gives flexibility to the talent as well, and it will allow legal teams to attract talent because it will give better work life balance as well. And as far as I think I agree with you when you when you raise this point that how this can bring in collaboration, because human collaboration happens when meetings happen face to face. But I think post covid we have evolved as a system, as an ecosystem. There are shared digital channels, and there are and then of course human interface is very important. I think hybrid business legal teams can have weekly check-ins, and they can also have twice a week kind of where entire legal team is available in the office. So those kind of processes need to be built in, and I think it's a way forward.
Thank you so much, Roop. Let's come to you, Komal. Why don't you share your thoughts? How exactly can law firms help in operationalizing these kind of hybrid, teams? How exactly would you see this in terms of, driving measurable efficiency and having a better client outcomes?
So there are two things. One, the law firm itself has to work with a multidisciplinary team, and that's what is hybrid working, where it's not just the lawyers, practicing lawyers who are working alone. They have knowledge lawyers with them. They have innovation lawyers with them. There could be an application development team working alongside. And then there are so many other roles in business services. So it is not a practicing lawyer alone who is doing the job. There are lots of people who are supporting in the entire transaction of whatever the lawyer is doing. So number one is doing it yourself, practicing it yourself, and second is how do you work with clients. What we are seeing is lots of clients are actually coming to us because we have been there and doing this from very early on. So when now some of the clients want to bring in that same hybrid model in their own organizations. They're actually looking at us to share our knowledge and experience with them, and coach them on how they can work and how they can build a multidisciplinary team in their own organization. And then comes the question how both the organizations, the law firm and the client, can work together, who are both now having multidisciplinary teams. Multidisciplinary teams help a lot because then you get a full picture. It's not just only a practicing lawyer's point of view. You are getting to know, and I actually, even before you are getting to know, you are assigning the right people the right job. So I'm not doing something that I get bored of doing or that I don't wish to do. I am doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing. And you dissect roles and you dissect the work to assign it to the right people. Now when there are right people on both the sides, the communication becomes very easy. The communication, each one knows what their role is in that entire transaction or whatever the work may be, and the working of both the teams becomes very, very smooth. And with that smooth work, obviously the outcome is going to be superior legal service delivery. So that's really the way to go about it.
Absolutely. You bring out a very important point. Both in house and external law firms have to talk the same language. And if they're not using similar technologies, if they're not aware of, what is going on, it's very difficult to collaborate, right? So there has to be, matching of pace both in house and external. Absolutely agree with that. But then that brings us to an important topic, because it's not always that it's easy to pick up technology. There is somewhat a resistance a lot of times. And at the same time, there is also a different set of soft skills that need to be developed in order to be able to manage in a hybrid sort of a model. So coming to you, Preeti, what are your thoughts on, what kind of soft skills do we really need to make hybrid teams work like this?
Maybe I think I just technology. I think you just need to turn it on. When in doubt, turn it off and turn it on. So look, Ojasvita, very interesting topic. Maybe just take a step back and understand a little bit about why we are in the future of work, hybrid working models. I think a global pandemic very quickly taught us that uh, there are modern technology that is underutilized, that needs to be utilized, and that we can all work together without being in the physical space. And of course that shifted our economy from a real estate heavy economy to a perhaps slightly more technology heavy economy. Having said that, we're human beings connect. We're social animals. Human beings like to connect in person. A lot of the times, we find that what is common sense is not always very common. We need to provide training and insights and direction for teams to work together and collaborate. But what I'd like to say is we keep it very simple. What is important is mutual respect. We drill down through a lot of training what you can wear on a Zoom call or a Teams call, how the simple rules of office work or professionalism continue as much offline or continue as much online. And it's very important for you to have that kind of emotional intelligence, mutual respect, making sure that there are no your dedicated workspace for when you're not in the office is as professional as it possibly can be. CRISIL is a very interesting organization in the sense that we have always had a large workforce that is not in the office. We're also in various countries where sometimes in those countries we don't always have offices. And so, how do we make it an environment where we are able to provide the same consistent service delivery? Also, we put our employees in a client environment as well. So it's not just our systems, our technology; it is also client systems and client technology. I think my sort of very quick takeaways is that we need to ensure what we would enforce offline continues to be enforced online. The other thing that we find, and I understand there that in forums such as these, we're working with cross cultural workforce which comes from different backgrounds in different countries. So what may be a general how are you may seem intrusive in another culture or another country. A manager may think that it's appropriate to send you a text on WhatsApp in perhaps one country, but in another country it may be taken amiss. um, and therefore, it's very important, A, as legal teams, to be aware of the various regulations that impact workforces across countries in which we operate. Ensure that there is adequate training around that, and make sure that we manage and mitigate discrimination litigations, because those also happen and they are a reality. So it's very, very critical, high risk to ensure soft skills or skills that we don't often think of when we're all together in the workplace are equally stressed on and incorporated when we're not in the workplace. And more so, we find this acutely so in a hybrid working model, where we're not always coming together and able to have subtext and context and body language to clarify things.
100%. Couldn't agree more with you. As the general counsel of, having 16 countries across Africa, Middle East, APAC, this is something that we face. My general counsel in South Africa doesn't mind actually dropping a message on WhatsApp, like you said. But then in Australia, if you drop a message to somebody over the weekend, it's not considered very professional, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. I think, and the complexity is increased by the fact that you don't meet them face to face, so you don't develop that relationship as strong that you would if you were meeting them every day. 100% agree with you. And I think that is an important aspect that general counsels need to consider when they are looking at hybrid models and implementing AI and all the buzzword that's going around these days, automation, etc. So thank you so much, Preeti, for sharing softer side of a hybrid team and using of technology. Let's now go to the hard part of it, the hard skills that are required. And let me come to you, Komal. In terms of an outside counsel or outside law firm, what kind of hard skills are required? What kinds of things that you believe law firms or in-house teams should work on before they start implementing something like a hybrid and something like an AI tool and things like that, in terms of policies, in terms of regulations, in terms of governance?
So actually, these are two very distinct topics. When you are looking at a hybrid team, and that was really on the peak during the pandemic. So that time, and Preeti's covered it, that when you are having some people work remotely, some people in the office, obviously the policy has to say it all, and people need to know what are the do's and the don'ts. And my test of it would be that if I'm working from home, nobody should get to know that I'm working from home. If that is happening, nobody knows that I'm working from home, I'm working. Then the test I have cleared. And that will only happen when I get clear set of guidelines. If I think that telling people that oh, my network is weak, or I'm dressed in casuals today, and all of that should be acceptable when actually it is not, then I need to be told that this is wrong by the guidelines. If I'm not given any guidelines, I can get away with anything. So that's the policy for hybrid teams when we talk about working from in various offices or at home. But when we are implementing an AI, either we are becoming an AI first organization, or when we are beginning to start using AI, there are very different things that you need to focus on, because now you're transforming the way you're working. You are moving away from your old traditional ways. You're redesigning processes around the technology. And when we talk about AI, the first thing that people need to know is what are the do's and don'ts. Therefore, even before you talk about rolling out an AI technology, you first have to have the AI policy in place. Because again, it's like school. If you do not teach the student what is right, what is wrong, the student can get the student is going to say, I never knew it, you never told me. So therefore, such a big initiative such as AI, which has so many risks associated with the outcomes, it's important that you have an AI policy in place now, not just in theory, but multiple training and awareness sessions need to take place, where you not only run people through that entire policy that you would have drafted, but also some of the examples of what the do's are and what the don'ts are. So then that registers in people's mind. Now, alongside, as a law firm, it's very, very important for me to also take people's acknowledgement that they have read and understood the policy. Because, again, I can be saying that I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but then if people are not understanding the policy, then what's the point? So I need their acknowledgement that the efforts that I have taken to teach you and to make you aware, you've also understood what I've done. After the AI policy is in place, then you can go ahead with the rollout, and then there are practical sides to the use of the technology, and what the use cases are, how best to use it, how do you keep communicating to people, how do you improve the adoption rate, how do you teach people to use the technology in the right intended way and not incorrectly and say the technology is bad and all of that. And alongside all of this, even before the technology has been selected, it has to have gone through that entire infosec clearance, where it would have gone through all audits to check that my data is not going to be used for their trading, my data is not going to go out on the internet, etc., etc. That, so the infosec team would have done all those checks. Now, alongside training, communication, AI policy implementation, use case identification also is a regular audit by the infosec team. Because you may have cleared the test once and the first time, but you have to continue keeping up with the standards and the changing standards as well. Because the technology is so dynamic that today what may seem to be right and the best practice, tomorrow it's going to become outdated. So whatever is the change and however the technology is advancing, so do my measures of auditing and confirming that it meets all the basic standards has to keep getting upgraded.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Komal. I will come back to you again for some practical examples of how we implement these technology. But first, let me go to Roop. So, Roop, what when you look at your own organization, when you're looking at how we can be future ready, how exactly can legal teams better be prepared for transformation and for any kind of technology barriers? What do you think? What do you think that we need to do in our teams to make them ready for the future?
I think first of all and the foremost is that they have to get used to the technology. They have to be digitally fluent, and that's the core part. And then secondly, they have to have a process mindset. Because when you are working remotely, you will be subject to more processes. So they have to have that project mindset. And thirdly, how they make their visibility and presence felt. So they will have to, because now for maybe 3 days they will be working remotely, so they have to ensure that how they keep in touch with the business and are in sync with the business. So these are few things which are at top of my mind that they have to be prepared with. There will be some behavior changes as well. So yeah.
Completely agree. I think we will come back to you on exactly how we can actually develop these within our teams. But let me continue with you, Komal, because you talked about these technology, and we talked more on a hypothetical level. But if we dig down a little bit on the practical aspects, What do you think are the ways in which, AI and technology and legal ops team can really support in-house teams, especially given everybody wants to get on this AI bandwagon, because it's such a buzzword. Everybody is experimenting with different tools. There are companies that are, using off the market, off the shelf tools because they are specific to legal, and then there are companies like CRISIL that cannot go to off the shelf because there are a lot of regulatory requirements, confidentiality requirements, etc. So what kind of, legal ops and AI tools do you recommend for an in-house team?
So there are a number of questions in this one question of yours. The first is whether you should build or buy. Again, every organization has to decide for
Correct, that would
themselves.
depend on the regulatory requirement of that.
I mean, if I have to recommend, I will also deep dive into your processes. What exactly is your requirement? And if your requirement is for a build, then so be it. And if your requirement is such that there are so many tools already in the market, then why are you going to build and why are you going to waste your time? Rather go buy off the shelf. So, really, there is a build and buy strategy which each organization has to decide for themselves. If you are going by the build, it's obvious that you're going to have a team or an external developer who will develop it for you. And if you are going to buy from the market, it's important to go and check against your needs what are the solutions available. It's not important to go by what is popular. What are the big names? Big names may be there, but you first check what your need is and accordingly match your requirements with the solutions offerings, and experiment with not 10. If you've selected 10 out of 10, then again shortlist and come down to 3 and experiment with them and then choose the best. And that best has to be not just the product but also the team that you're going to be working with. It has to be both, because you may have a great product but a bad team, or maybe a less committed team. They're just looking to grow a little bigger and sell themselves off. And mostly I have in my experience seen, especially AI technologies, they're all startups who maybe some of them become unicorns, but the startups, the ones sold to one of the biggies, they don't bother about that product. And who's the ultimate sufferer? It is the client. So that's number one. Number two, how can clients and law firms work? Again, coming to that second question, depending on where you are, everybody is at a different stage in their journey. Now, some are already at a very advanced stage, such as my organization, and some are just beginning to even think, not even experiment, they're thinking now that, okay, now the world is moving and now it looks like that we will not be able to avoid this journey. So now let's get started. So some are there. Depending on where you are, you have to find that partner for yourself who will be able to guide you. Look, even when we started with the AI journey, we had some of our global counterparts who had already moved ahead in that. And we waited deliberately to see what they have to say. We didn't think that this one is the one where we need to be the first ones. We felt let's wait, let's see, and then we will, take. So really that's for each organization again to decide. But how I as a law firm can help my clients is by sharing my knowledge and experience. And if some of the clients who absolutely want us to handhold them, so really then that would be called a consulting piece, where you want to engage me as a consultant and I handhold from your from understanding your process from scratch, doing the entire process mapping, evaluating what is it that you need. Is it technology? Is it resources? Is it just some little process engineering? And from there, then identify the right technology, help you with the training, implementation, and also then that continuous learning. Then you're really giving me that entire responsibility of helping you with the entire selection and rollout, and then sustaining it, continuing with that journey. So again, depending on every client's requirement, some of them just come to us asking us to have 2 hours, 1 hour call to share our knowledge and experience. And while some of them say, can you recommend some tools for this purpose, or I actually do not know what purpose, but you come and you meet us and meet my team, ask them what their problems are, and then accordingly suggest. So lots can happen, but again, every organization is different. So we need to decide when we meet the organization.
Correct. Absolutely right. I mean, I think you have hit the nail on the head, because what solution is best suited for an organization would depend on, one, how ready they are to adopt technology, and two, what exactly is their requirement, right? So, for example, in my organization, we started using AI for contract review and things like that back in 2021. And we did not get an off the shelf requirement that fit us as a perfect solution. So we bought two different tools and we integrated them at the back end to make a perfect fit for us, right? So, absolutely right that it has to depend on what exactly is the requirement, and it has to be something that also, fits within the governance structure that you also talked about of the organization, right? But then there is also aspects of, you do all of this, you do the soft skills bit, you create a team that works, you get the right tools, etc., and everything, but then you have to also motivate your team to actually adopt that technology, and to to the tool is useless if it is not adopted and used by the intended people, right? So coming to you, Roop, according to you as a leader, what do you do as a leader to motivate your team to adopt this sort of technology, to be more ready for adopting AI tools?
I think again the behavior and the cultural change has to be brought in, and that can be brought in by showing them some quick wins, showing them that they can be quicker solutions around things, and quicker and smarter solutions around things, which saves their time, and then also putting them through some data that these are the quick wins that we have had, so that can bring in a lot of mindset change. I think most of the lawyers, we are trained to not use technology unless we touch the paper. We don't derive that satisfaction, because touching the file, touching the paper, it brings in that satisfaction. So I myself I'm trying to change. I've not reached the destination as still, but point is that we have to evolve. So I think the faster we evolve to the AI setup and technology, the better it is, because it saves a lot of time.
Thank you so much, Roop. I completely agree. And I think, Preeti, since you are also a general counsel, I will come to you with the same sort of a question. What kind of strategies should in house legal teams implement so that, we have an effective adoption of these tools?
So I have a few not so routine thoughts about it. So one of the things is that a lot of the times we have a conversation about what does legal departments do? What are we doing? Are we basically managing risk, mitigating risk? Are we called into the room when there's a big fiasco and you have to put out a fire? So I think some of the business case for adoption of technology is the fact that we get to participate in proactive and strategic risk management when the routine tasks are automated, right? And automation does not need to be as sophisticated as AI. It could be something as simple as a enterprise wide contract workflow management. The other thing is that, of course, we are moving towards self service models. And the more we can enable a self service model, the more I can encourage or entice a smart young lawyer to say, hey, you're not going to be doing operational routine work, you're going to be doing strategic things. Uh, and the kinds of strategic things that we do are very, very diverse and very, very interesting. Also, a lot of the work that we do is creating a seat at the table, right? So we're not just business partnering, we're also business leaders, and we don't necessarily see ourselves as, you have a problem, let me come solve it for you. How about we co-create solutions whilst we're sitting at the table? I just happen to wear the legal hat. The other thing that helps and that I've found is very helpful is when you give them data driven insights, right? Here's the data, here's what works. Like Roop said, demonstrate early wins, but you also have to ensure that the business case, the return on investment, the outputs are significant, and that they are measurable and they are tangible. Also, before you can convince a team to use technology, you also need to convince a department to invest, an organization to invest, to make sure that your technology is going to enable. I often times get asked this question to clarify what legal in-houses versus outsources, right? Because there is still today a mindset or a perception that I have an in-house team and therefore I should not and need not outsource anything other than an appearance in a court. And therefore, one of the things that we also oftentimes are dealing with is what is it that we are doing as an in-house team, right? And if I give you a few examples, so very recently, we were tasked with, and because legal ops and AI is a topic of the moment, we were told that AI can potentially cannibalize our business. So when you're doing research and consulting and summarizations, and you're using public and private data to provide research, how are you going to ensure as a business you have the right licensing models for, and how are you protecting data, you have the right licensing models, and how are you protecting revenue? And all of this comes at the back of the ethical use of AI, confidentiality, proprietary data, proprietary processes. As a legal team, are you even thinking about process patents? Can you go out and perhaps patent a index, and things like that? Because a lot of these are innovative creative work. Of course, they don't always use hardware and software, so sometimes it fails that test. But these are the kinds of questions that we're grappling with. So the use case or the business case for adoption is fairly well established, but sometimes the fact that it's not still able to see that kind of ROI in the 1 year or the 2 year. So to show them value creation, and to make them see the long road, or the road down, down the road, which they will see soon enough, is a little bit of our job to do, both with teams and with businesses and organizations.
Absolutely. I think you have, really touched a sensitive nerve for any general counsel trying to negotiate, investments into technology. Because yes, it's difficult to put an ROI and an exact figure to it, right? So, I mean, that's really something that needs to be measured, and that needs to be the panel before us was an interesting topic. They talked about how legal can be a profit center, right? We are always seen as, so unless you set up a GBS, and we were having this discussion, unless you set up a GBS and you start selling legal services for profit, you cannot be, and then you lose what you said, Preeti, the seat at the table, right?
So I'll just add, one point. More and more, I think businesses want to see lawyers bring their experience to the table, not just their legal know-how, right? So technical legal know-how we all got, right? What sets one in-house team apart, what sets one lawyer apart, is how much experience he or she has. They've done it before, and how can they solve the problem? I overheard a conversation from one of the lawyers who was actually talking to you, and he said, "Do you want me to tell you the technical way or the practical way?" And what was really impressive was that he found a practical solution. So experience matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's been a fantastic discussion. Before we close the discussion, can I spend a minute asking if anybody has any questions, or if any of my panelists would like to give any concluding remarks to add to whatever they have said?
I think I just want to conclude saying that legal excellence alongside digital fluency is really defining the lawyer of today and tomorrow. It's not even tomorrow, it is today. So all of the stuff that we've discussed, and I'm sure since the morning, all of it must be the same discussions, and the same terms must be being used continuously in all panels. Everybody has to understand that this is ground reality, and what will differentiate one from the other is how best are we executing, whether a hybrid model, whether an AI driven organization, whether collaboration between clients and law firms, how are we going to be executing it differently from each other? That is what will be our differentiator.
Just to add, and Komal spoke about the law firm side of things. As an in-house team, legal service delivery models matter. What are you looking at in terms of legal service delivery? How are you curating what the delivery model should look like? What are the tools or operations and processes that you're putting together to ensure that delivery? What is the value creation? And ultimately, what is it that can be self-service and require low intervention or low touch? How much can you make organizations independent such that they can help themselves? That really removes barriers. And we're here to solve the slightly more strategic problems, just like how you would go to your chief marketing officer when you want to come up with a marketing plan or strategy. You go to your lawyer when you want to launch a new product, go to a new market, or do business in a new way. You have a new product and you don't know what to do with it, and you go to your lawyer and says, help me do business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I completely agree with the thoughts of all my panelists. I think it has been a very interesting discussion on the topic of technology and adoption and AI. I think it's safe to say the future is not lawyers versus AI, it's lawyers who know AI and lawyers who don't know AI. So, with that, thank you so much. You've been a lovely audience. And sorry for going a little bit over time, but it was an interesting topic. Thank you so much.